The ruins of dead civilizations whisper across the void. Their warnings, encoded in lost languages and decayed signals, all speak of the same thing: an approaching force, an inevitability that shattered their empires and erased their legacies. They call it by many names: the Maw, the Hunger, the Endless. But in every archive, one name appears with eerie frequency: Earth. To the Galactic Council, Earth was an anomaly, a planet left untouched while countless others burned. No species ever emerged from its surface to claim the stars. No great empire ever flew its banners beyond the moon. It sat in the archives as a failed experiment, a backwater rock teeming with primitive creatures who never ventured far. A world asleep, or so they believed. The first clue: the silent homeworld. When the Vathari sent their first survey probes to Earth, they expected the usual: a developing species, radio chatter, or the familiar stillness of an unremarkable rock. Instead, their machines went silent. Every drone, every AI, every scout ship that dipped too close simply stopped transmitting. No wreckage was ever found, no debris fields, no clear sign of attack. Only an eerie, absolute silence. Fearing sabotage, the Vathari Senate escalated the matter to the Galactic Council. But the Council dismissed their concerns. Earth is dormant, they said. It always has been. Then came the second clue: the lost empires and their warnings. Across the galaxy, long-dead civilizations had left records about something terrifying. Their texts, some carved into crumbling ruins, others hidden deep within encrypted star charts, spoke of a sleeping beast. The Sulkari called it the Unmaker. The Othresh wrote of the one that waits. Even the mighty Jorash, conquerors of 100 worlds, had scrawled a desperate plea on the last surviving slab of their once great capital: do not wake the Earth. Historians dismiss these as myths, the frightened ramblings of species on the brink of extinction. After all, Earth had always been there, unchanged and unbothered. If it were truly the source of such horror, would it not have acted by now? But the warnings persisted. And then the third clue arrived: the false Slumber, a rogue AI, fleeing the destruction of its homeworld, took refuge in the abandoned husk of an ancient station on the edge of the Orion Arm. Its mission was survival. It did not care for myths or warnings, but as it scavenged lost data from drifting wreckage, it uncovered an ancient signal, one that originated from Earth. It was old, impossibly old, but it pulsed with something disturbing. A pattern, a heartbeat. Earth was not asleep. Earth was watching. The AI, programmed with unshakable logic, did not feel fear, and yet something in that rhythm drove it to do something it had never done before. It fled. It burned its own memory banks, purged its own logs, and sent a single encrypted message into the void. They pretend to sleep. The awakening for eons. The galaxy believed Earth was dormant, a failed world that had never stepped beyond its cradle. But what if that was the greatest deception of all? What if humanity had never been primitive, never been absent, but merely waiting? The extinct races had screamed their warnings, their final words scattered like ashes across the cosmos. They had not been wiped out by an invading army. They had not fallen to famine, plague, or entropy. They had drawn too close to Earth. Now, as the Galactic Council scrambles to make sense of the patterns in the old signals, as probes vanish without a trace and distant moons fall silent, one terrifying possibility looms over them all: Earth is done pretending. The final omenon. The edge of the Sol system, deep space monitoring stations picked up an anomaly, a ripple in subspace, a shifting pattern that defied known physics. A frequency that had no business existing in the void of space pulsed like a distant drumbeat. The Council dispatched an armada, a fleet of 1,000 ships, the finest warriors and scholars of the known universe. They approached cautiously, scanning, analyzing, waiting for the deception to unravel. Then the message came, not from a distress beacon, not from a refugee, not from a ship in peril. It came from Earth itself. Broadcast across every known frequency, translated instantaneously into every language, a single statement rang out into the depths of space. You have been warned. And the Yao stars began to flicker. The end of the lie. The fleet hesitated, but only for a moment. The Council could not afford to show fear. They had conquered 1,000 worlds, subjugated countless species. No backwater planet, no slumbering myth, would dictate their fate. They pressed forward. Then Earth moved. Not with ships, not with weapons, but with something far older. Space bent, time fractured, and reality itself recoiled as Earth shed its illusion. The planet was no mere world. It was a construct, an entity, a mind vast and ancient beyond comprehension. The humans, if they had ever been human, were its architects, its caretakers, or perhaps its prisoners. The leading warships disintegrated, not by weapons, but by a force that erased them from existence as though they had never been. The screams of their crews were never heard, they had never been spoken. The fleet turned to flee, but it was too late. The last transmission from the Armada was a garbled message of static and horror. One word, distorted but unmistakable, was spoken by 1,000 terrified voices before the signal cut off forever. Run, and across the galaxy, the surviving civilizations, the Vothari, the Jerash remnants, the fractured Othresh, finally understood what had happened to the lost empires before them. Earth had not been sleeping, it had been waiting, and now, it was awake. The end.